Welcome to all of you on Zoom. Welcome to everybody here. This is session 4. This is about plants, soil, bacteria, and how we put them all together into a guild. I'm here with Steve Batley, who's our landscape architect and permaculture expert. I'm Julian, I'm a sustainability educator here. And behind the camera and working the computer today and probably for the next few weeks is going to be Natalia Mendelevich, who's one of my colleagues here in the sustainability team. We're here inside the outdoor classroom. We're indoors at the outdoor classroom, and it's a pretty fantastic building because it's all passive solar designed, and there it is, passive solar design, which means that it's a really lovely temperature here, pretty much all the year round, even when it's stinking hot outside. Things like the bricks hold a lot of cool, and in winter they warm up. We are on Gadigal and Bidjigal land, so I'd like to pay our respects for elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge any Indigenous people in the audience. Over to you, Steve. Fantastic. This is going to be great.
And some beans have just walked in. Check them out.
From earlier on.
We've got to see the beans. These are from 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but I wasn't sure if, you know how you're saying if they come up really high, then it's for light. Because they, like, when I brought in them last week,
Yeah. Yeah. No, they look pretty good. Time to get them out, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, cool. All right, so last week, those of you you guys were here last week. Those of you who are on Zoom who were here last week, we did composting and worm farming. Can you remember anything that you want to share from your rememberings from last week?
I wasn't there last week. I couldn't get in.
That's okay. Well, hopefully the guys here will help you out with what we did. And so worm farming, what's some of the key things that you want to remember to get right with worm farming?
the right spot.
Yeah, put it in.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, what would be the right spot for your worm farm?
Probably not in direct sunlight.
Yeah.
And not too exposed, probably. Right?
Yeah.
You said it's okay a little bit, but mostly I think the heat.
Yep. Yeah, keep them in a nice cool spot, particularly in summer. A little bit warmer in winter. They like it about 23, 24.
Or use them as a coffee table.
Use them as a coffee table. What can go wrong with worm farms? What's a common thing that can happen with your worm farm? And how can you afford
too much food in it?
Yeah, if you put too much food in one go, and it sits there and sits there and sits there, and there's not enough worms to process it and eat it, it can become festy and smelly and a little bit acidic, and the worms don't like that, and that's when you get problems with smells and mold and other critters moving in. So less is more with food. What about composting? What's the process of making a compost pile? Hot compost?
Just to pile in everything in layers.
Yeah, so what would your different layers be? You remember?
Green and high nitrogen, and then dry down.
Yep. So, yeah, that's probably the most important thing to remember is that balance of the green, rich, moist material and the dry, brown, carbon-based material. You get that balance right, it should be pretty okay with whatever system you prefer to use. So it's what goes in. This is really important. All right, so this week is about the permaculture concept called guilds. And we'll be looking at the idea of guilds, and we'll go through a permaculture tool to get you thinking about your garden, or even if it's in a small space or in a pot. A tool that you can use, which is one of my favourite permaculture tools, to start thinking about creating what we call a guild, which will become clear in a minute. And then we'll go out and we'll look at soil. So soil and the relationship between soil and plants is such a key thing when you're growing anything, but particularly when you're growing food, and particularly when you want your food to grow really well and be nutrient rich and be healthy, hopefully disease resistant or pest resistant. So we'll look at soil, and then we'll look at how we can actually plant a thing called a guild. So what do you think a guild might be? Has anyone heard of the word guild? On Zoom, feel free to call out as well.
It's like
Yes.
Yeah, like a group of people who work together, could be a guild. Or, yeah, often it's someone called out in Zoom. Did you have a? So you might have heard of the Stone Masons Guild, or the guild. So a guild in human terms is a group of people who get together. They've all got different skills and they all work together. A guild in the context of permaculture is looking at how you can group different elements and different plants and different things together, so that rather than them all kind of just being by themselves and having to fend for themselves, you plant them in a group relative to each other, and they all kind of work to support each other. So the plants are working as a community rather than as just individuals. And it's a way of looking at your garden as it's a way of creating systems, creating an ecosystem. So yeah, so we'll look at that. So the tool that we can use to create a guild is a thing that you might call a needs products, and maybe I like to use the word functions. Needs, products, functions, analysis, which sounds really boring, but it's really interesting. So you might do this for your garden. I'm going to try and draw a chicken. I don't know how to draw a chicken, but we'll call that. That'll do. That's sort of chicken-like. Okay, so chickens can be a really great addition to any garden, particularly a permaculture garden. But let's have a look at this chook. Okay. We'll think about the chook's needs. What do chooks need? So what are the inputs for a chook? Food.
Water.
So food, water, shelter. Yeah. So I think that was space, bedding.
Protection from foxes.
Yeah, bedding material, protection. They love scratching around, so somewhere to scratch. Say sand, or earth, or soil, dirt. So we could keep going. So they need lots of things. What about their products? What do they produce? Manure, eggs, feathers, feathers, meat. Yeah, sound. They produce sound. Okay, so you see that. And then, so functions could be things like, it could be functions, or it could be behaviors, or it could be just its characteristics, so how it grows, or how it moves, whatever. So functions of a chook, sort of almost covered it already.
Yeah.
So they like to scratch. What else do chooks do?
Talk to each other.
They talk to each other. They cluck.
Can we say pollination? That way, like they go here and there and they seeds from here to.
Yeah, maybe they do. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
That's a really good. I've never even thought of a chook being a spreader of seeds, but I guess they do. That's what birds do. They eat fruit and they poop it out somewhere else. So, yeah. we'll call them seed spreaders. Yeah, so
eat kitchen scraps and things like that.
yeah.
Eat snails.
Yeah. So they eat snails, I'll say etc. They eat kitchen scraps. All right, you get the idea. So now what you can do, you've done a thorough analysis of the humble chook. Ah, people on the screen, hello. And then you say, okay, so what else do we want to have in our permaculture small space garden? Let's throw something at me. What sort of things do you want to have in your small space garden?
Apart from chooks.
Apart from chooks. I know, it's hard to, that's probably enough for everybody. Yeah, maybe have ducks.
Bees.
Bees, yeah, worm farm. What about plant-wise?
Oh, plant vegetables.
Yeah, maybe some veggies. So you might look at, you do a whole another one of these for, say, your veggie garden. And you say, okay, what does a veggie garden need? What's one thing a veggie garden needs? Sun.
Fertilizer.
Fertilizer. Water. Bit of pest management, maybe. I don't know if you can read this. I don't want to spend too long on this, so just get the idea across. So what needs of the veggie garden are provided by the products of the chooks? Fertilizer. So there's a connection. So our chooks and vegetables, and there's a lot more back and forth. You know, we look at the products of our veggies, and do any of the products of our vegetable garden meet the needs of the chicken? Yeah, heaps of them. So your leftover veggies, that's chicken food, yeah, after we don't eat it or not. So you start to find links, you start to find connections between different elements of your system. So if you have your chooks over there, I know we're talking small spaces, but if your chooks are way over there and your veggie garden is over here, could we do better than that? What can we do differently in our design?
Run on top of each other.
Yeah. So we can integrate them together. So we know that, you know, one thing that permaculture does is this thing called a chook tractor. So you grow your veggies after you've harvested, when it's, you know, if you've taken what you want out of the veggie garden and ready to replant it, you put your chooks on it, you integrate your chooks and your veggies. The chooks eat the products of the veggie garden, provide their needs, and they manure onto the veggie garden. And then once you take them off, and then you plant your plants again, and they've got all the food, and they, you know, it's just it's a combination. So a guild is basically like that. You're looking at the elements, and you're finding connections, and how can one part of the system work with another part of the system? All right. Any questions about that kind of idea? Cool. So let's go outside. Oh, actually, I'll show you just, I don't know if you, so there's a couple of the permaculture principles that relate to that. I don't know if you guys can see these. Hold them up. So use and value. This is, you'll probably see this one every week. Okay, this is really key. Use and value diversity. This is what we're talking about, integrating things rather than segregating. This is one of the really big mind shifts, I think, that permaculture differs to kind of just common old gardening. Is how can you combine things to make a system? And the other one, this is relevant to what we're going to do next. So I'll take that one out. We're going out of the garden now, so we're going to get friendly with soil. So come for a walk there with us for a second while we get mobile. We'll see you up in the, we're heading up to the food forest. So
Staying out there.
yeah, I think we'll stay outside.
Yeah, that's good.
Say hello to everybody. Just start to get familiar with the
The
all of
faces.
you on scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're just heading out into
Bright lights.
bright lights, food forest up here. We get a lot of strong winds here, so you can see in front of planted big shielding plants. This is going in.
Permaculture is replicate natural systems. So we're replicating how things work. I often like to think of a rainforest when I'm talking about soil, because rainforests have really awesome soil, amazing plants from that. So if you imagine you're in a rainforest and you look out, what are you seeing on the surface generally? Leaves, insects, branches, just things that have fallen down from the top. So if we look at our soil here, and feel free to strongly critique our soil. This is, we want to see if this is any good or not. So what do you see on the surface here? One of those. There's a few leaves, a few twigs, some of that. There's a slug. Would you say it's a thick layer of sort of plant material, or no? It's not really at all, is it? If we look here, there's none, so that's not good. So this is like anti-permaculture. You can't do this. So this is a great example. But over here, we've got a little bit of mulch going on. hopefully you'll be able to pick up as I scrape down and look through the mulch. Can you guys see anything happening here? If you come in, you can't. Social distancing and all that, but what do you see in those? Yeah, there's bugs. If you come in really, if you're where I am, you can see there's heaps and heaps of bugs. There's this thing, there's this little crawly thing, there's tiny little guys here. So there's a lot of life in this soil that we can see. So lots of critters. What do you think these guys are doing here?
Breaking things down.
Yeah, they're eating some of this organic matter. They're breaking things down. A lot of them, because they're bigger, they're actually eating other critters. So there's critters eating critters. There's critters eating leaves. There's critters eating who knows what. So here's an interesting piece of something here. I don't know if you guys is there any? Yeah. Sorry.
Is that fungus thing?
Yeah. So that, see that white, almost like spider web. Yeah. That's that white stuff. Yeah, that's fungus or fungi or mycelium fungi. What's it doing?
It's breaking things down.
Yeah, it's living. It's breaking down this piece of wood, and there's more in here. And yeah, so that's actually it. Is that good?
Yeah.
Bad?
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah. So that's a absolutely essential key part of a healthy soil ecosystem is fungi, and the fungi mostly its job is to break down this woody material. So you'll often see it on bits of bark, and you can see that's pretty much done its job. Okay, so that's fungi. What's here that we can't see?
Bacteria.
Yeah, bacteria. So gazillion bacteria, countless. And what's the bacteria doing?
Also
Breaking down all this organic matter. Okay, so everything in here is eating something. A lot of it's eating this plant, dead plant material, and a lot of it's eating the things that are eating the plant material. So it's a real food web. So we're talking about sort of really complicated, really complex little ecosystem going on. So as we dig down further, what do you notice? How would you describe? Oh, look at that. That's interesting. Grab this. So as we dig down, we might find, how would you describe this stuff? That's a great sound. I love it. Yeah, rich, dark, moist, little bit crumbly, but you'll notice it's kind of holding together in little clumps like this. This is beautiful soil. Okay, this is, what is the dark stuff in this soil, do you think? Yeah, it's called humus. So it's broken down organic matter. After it's been through all these critters, it breaks down into really fine forms of carbon, and it's called humus. What does humus do for us? Well, not for us, for our soil. What's a characteristic of humus? Yeah, really nutrient rich. Okay, and this is what you make in your compost bin and your worm farm. It's basically this humus.
Is it nitrogen or it's got like
It should have a lot of different nutrients in it. Yeah, depending on what's gone on into it. That's why diversity is really important, because the more diversity, the more range of nutrients. What else? What is another characteristic of our humus?
It's got air in it.
Yeah, it's got air. So that little clump that I just broke is what we call soil structure. So humus is a little bit like glue in the soil, and it binds the other particles together, and it forms these little clumps or peds. And each one of these has got air in it, and it's got, what else?
Water.
Yeah, moisture. So lots of moisture. So humus holds water anywhere from, I don't know, maybe 10 times its own volume in water. So whenever it rains, if you've got humus in the soil, the rain will soak in because it's got this nice structure with lots of air holes, and it will hold onto water around the soil and make it available for plants. So this is what you're aiming for when you're building soil, is a nice, dark, rich, humus-rich, living soil ecosystem. The sort of thing that makes you go, that's really cool. That's what humus. All right, and how do we get that?
Protect it, you know.
Yeah, you want to protect it from these things. So every time we dig, what are we doing to our soil ecosystem? Yeah, we're pretty much destroying it. So all these critters have just gone there, you know, we've just driven a bulldozer through their house from their home, and we've kind of broken it all down, and we've probably killed a lot of them. We've just chopped a worm in half, which is awful, you know, it's not what you're aiming for. So don't disturb your soil ecosystem by digging. It's the best way to kill your soil is digging. So where am I going with that? So how do we make good soil? How can we? Yeah. So mulch. So anything organic matter. Keep a nice thick layer of broken down organic matter on top of your soil, which we might call mulch. I didn't bring my secateurs, but this, you know, in this garden here, in our food forest, we do a thing called chop and drop. So we're actually growing our own mulch. This is lucerne, and we grow it to prune it and to use it as a soil, as a mulch to feed our soil.
Yeah, you would buy it, and like when you buy lucerne.
Yeah, this is really expensive mulch.
It's expensive. It's really expensive.
Yeah, it's really expensive, and it's so easy to grow. Like this is all mulch, and it's really got lots of nutrients in it, and it'll feed your soil. Yeah. So you know, part of permaculture is minimizing your inputs to maximize your outputs. So growing your own mulch is a good thing. So there's a whole process going on here, which is all about breaking down organic matter that falls onto the surface of the soil. And that's effectively what happens in any forest or ecosystem. Trees fall down, critters come up, they eat it, turn it into humus, grows more plants. So it's this nutrient cycle. So this process of growth and decay. So all these critters breaking down that organic matter. There's another process which is really, really important as well for building soil. And does anyone know what that is? What's another process that's going on?
Composting.
Composting, yeah. So composting that we did last week and worm farming is basically fast tracking this natural process in a soil. So we're kind of taking the organic matter, putting it in a container, making it break down with all the bacteria and the fungi and all the critters, and then we put it onto our garden. So if you're doing composting or worm farming, you can then harvest your fast-tracked soil humus with all its life in it. Hopefully you've got lots of fungi and bacteria and critters. All these critters are in your compost, and you can put that on the top of your pot or on the top of your garden, on top of your soil, cover it with mulch, and you've just instantly created this soil ecosystem. So that's the great thing about mulch. I mean, about compost and worm farms. You're fast-tracking this.
You just put it on top of the mulch?
Yeah, I just literally put it straight on top and put mulch on top.
I did that last week after our class. I was like, I better get home and just compost mulch.
Just get your,
Yeah, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
It wasn't raining. And
yeah,
it's
perfect
great.
timing. Yeah. And you'll be amazed
It's amazing.
what it does. You know, it's so simple. It's not hard. There's no hard work. It's just, you know, you're just nurturing your soil, and your plants respond. I don't know if your plants have responded yet,
It's a
but
herb garden, but it's like they look really, really good.
yeah. So that's the process. But there is another process going on, and that is this amazing symbiotic relationship, or a guild, that's going on between your plants and the soil. So it's not something that we kind of, well, you would typically expect to be part of the soil building process. And that's just, the whole idea, the whole world of soil and how it works and how soil and plants interact is fairly new. People are just starting to kind of just understand it. It's like, I think we know more about the moon than we do about the soil. So it's incredible. So the process is, it starts with the sun and leaves. What do you think that process might be? Photosynthesis. So we all know, well, so photosynthesis is the process where the sun shines onto a leaf, and I'm sure someone here knows more about it than I do technically, but is it the chlorophyll? There's a magic goes on in these leaves, right? And the leaves convert the sun's energy into sugars. Yeah, so there's, so it sucks in carbon dioxide, some nutrients come up from underneath, there's water involved, the sun's energy. So a plant is a solar harvester through photosynthesis. So it's sucking in all this energy from the sun. And what it does with that energy, it makes sugars, and it uses those sugars to build the plant. They're starting to learn that these plants typically might only use, and it give or take, probably half of those sugars to build their plants. What are they going to do with the other half of those sugars, do you think? Goes into the ground, goes into the roots, and they exude the sugars out into the soil. Why would they do that? Could be 70%, yeah. So it could be the majority of the sugars they produce are exuded into the soil. Yeah. So what's happening under the ground, you've got certain types of fungi and bacteria and other organisms that live around those root systems, and they're feeding off the sugars that the plant's putting into the ground. And it's carbon, essentially. So plants are pumping carbon out of the atmosphere into the ground, feeding the soil ecosystem, or feeding the soil food web. And they're learning that, most of those organisms, it's a symbiotic relationship. It's a mutually beneficial relationship between the plants and the organism. So the fungi sends out those, we saw those spider web structures. Fungi sends out these amazing structures into the soil, and they find nutrients, and they're able to access nutrients that the plants can't get, and they bring them back and they feed the plant in return for the sugars. So that's just one of the ones that we know about. There's all sorts of stuff. There's nematodes. So there's nematodes that do it, which are little tiny microscopic worms, and some of them parasitize plants. Some of them eat the sugars, some of them eat each other. There's, I've forgotten what they're called now, actinomycetes. You might school. I remember that word from school, biology. It's not quite a bacteria, it's not quite a fungi. I think it's a bacteria that acts like a fungi. So there's a type of bacteria that forms this web-like structure, and it actually can protect your plants from pathogens, so diseases. So your plants and your soil work together for the health of the whole system. Our job as humans is to what? Don't touch it. Just get out of the way and let it happen, So we love digging and we love turning and we love getting in the way, but your system knows how to look after itself. You just have to understand it and maybe feed your soil. So no harm in putting some compost and some mulch down. What else can we do from a design perspective to maximize the health of our soil if you're thinking about plants? This is a bit of a broad one.
Would it be certain plants can put certain nutrients into the soil? So I guess plant accordingly, or is that too? Yeah. So sorry, I was saying certain plants can give certain nutrients, put certain nutrients into the soil. So I guess planning what plants give which nutrients and then planting accordingly.
Yeah, and the easy way to do that is to remember our principle, diversity. So you'll notice here, there's a lot of diversity. We've got some plants that grow up like this. We've got these covers, and they're all different leaf types, different types of plants, and they're all, you would assume, putting different things into the soil, different sugars, different energy. The more green photosynthesizing leaves you've got in an area, the more energy is going to be pumped into the soil, which it kind of flips on the head everything we know, right? Because plants don't feed the soil feeds the plants, but it's actually the other way around. The plants are pumping energy into the soil. So the more diversity, the more different types of leaves, the more healthy your soil ecosystem will be.
And that's why people think the weeds are killing the soil, because they think plants pull the nutrients out of the soil, so that's why they want to kill the weeds.
Yeah.
But instead, the weeds help the soil to improve too.
Yeah, weeds are just plants doing their thing, photosynthesizing and putting nutrients into the ground. So I think if you don't have a healthy soil ecosystem, it probably is the other way around. The plants probably do take nutrients out of the soil because there's not the organisms there to provide the food for them. So you need the organisms, you need the fungus, bacteria, all the life in the soil. So that's your goal, is to create this guild, this symbiotic relationship between the diversity of life above the ground and the diversity of life in the ground. And it's just not that hard to do, really. Just plant them and mulch and compost and step back and let it go.
And how deep is the soil here? Do you know?
Oh yeah, so if we keep digging, oh, my legs are gonna oh, I'm totally lose feeling in my foot. So if we dig down, and normally we wouldn't do this, but we can, so we'll dig down. Tell me what you notice as we're going down deeper.
Lighter in color.
It's getting a bit lighter in color. It's actually a little bit dry down there. So, and it's been pouring, hasn't it, with rain?
Yeah.
So you really appreciate, there's our poor old half a worm. Yeah, and you might, yeah. So we're getting to our sand. So as we dig down, there's probably less humus. There's still plenty of roots down there, but it's not far down. And we're almost, this is grey sand now, which is a bonus. It's improved from yellow sand to grey sand, so there's a little bit of, but it's still dry, really dry, despite all the rain that we've had. The top layer of humus is nice and moist, but yeah, so you can see, you get down to that sandy material. So really in your soil, all the action, most of the action is on that top layer. These guys are feeding from that top layer of humus and feeding the top layer of humus. Yeah, so over time, your carbon layer, your humus layer, your organic layer should get deeper and deeper. If we had animals in this system, it would probably be a lot deeper, because chickens and grazing animals really boost the soil ecosystem with all the organisms that come out of their bodies and in their guts. So if you can incorporate chickens into your small space.
The chickens, would you just let walk around there? Or?
Yeah, it depends on what you want to do. You can manage them. So yeah, there's different ways of managing them. But so that's the two key, soil building processes is the decay bit of it. So feeding the decomposers and the plant photosynthesis energy into the system kind of process as well. So there's a couple of things. Does anyone have any questions about all of that? Just while I try and speak. A lot of questions? No? I don't know what it's like. Yeah. All right, so I'll ask you again next week, so feel free to get your questions together and fire them away. So I just wanted to briefly, we've got another 15 minutes for the Zoomers, but I wanted to, hopefully that kind of complex relationship, that's what guilds are all about, okay? I wanted to show you another application of a guild in the way that you might think about planting a garden or a pot or something. So it's looking at the plants that you might choose to plant and how they work together as a team. Now, as you look over here, looks pretty messy, yeah, but there's a lot of different things going on. There's a lot of reason behind what we've planted here. But I just wanted to show you a really simple, and a classic permaculture kind of guild. And this morning I discovered it's actually an Aztec planting technique. So it goes way back. This is way back. I think I've seen before. Permaculture was around. So it's a simple guild, and but I love it. It's really cool. So it involves sunflowers, or it can involve sunflowers. So sunflowers are really useful plant to grow in any garden. They're really good at actually improving the soil, and they love the sun. They're pumping lots of energy into the ground.
Sunflowers just grow once and then that's it.
Yeah, they're an annual, so they'll grow, they flower, they set their seeds, and then that's it. So then you harvest the seeds and you can eat them. Really good energy source. Or you can plant them again for next year's sunflowers. So we've got a whole bunch of sunflowers here.
Do you harvest those?
Yeah, these are from this garden.
Oh, that's lovely.
Collected on the 31st of January this year. So there you go, from the pig. So we can plant sunflowers. Now, if we've got a small patch of land, and this is probably not a guild for a small space, but it gives you the idea. So if we've got a piece of garden, and you really love sunflowers, and you love munching on sunflower seeds, you might plant some sunflowers.
Though? Like small, is it like how big would you plant?
Look, if you had a pot that was like this big, you might think of something else.
But like
if you had a
meter by meter.
A courtyard, So you'd plant your sunflowers, and maybe you'd decide how far apart you're going to plant them. Maybe you do a little bit more soil prep than that, but that's the idea. You might put some sunflowers in, space them 30 centimeters to half a meter apart, and you might plant a little cluster of sunflowers. Now that would be great because you'd get sunflowers and it would be awesome, and hopefully the cockatoos wouldn't get them first. But you've just got sunflowers, right? So we can actually grow other things as well in that same space. What's this? It looks like I wish it was a vanilla bean, but it's
A bean bean?
yeah, it's just a bean. I think it's some sort of snake bean. It's like a climbing bean. So what we would do in a guild situation, it doesn't look so healthy. It's like something's got to it. So we won't plant these. Imagine these were actually healthy looking beans. They look like they've gone a bit moldy. You never know, they could come good. So what we do, how do sunflowers grow? Straight up, right? They're fairly sturdy, fairly tall plants. What do beans need to grow? They like a stake to climb up. So is there a relationship there? Absolutely. So you might wait a little while for the sunflowers to get a little bit tall, and then you can put your beans in around the base of the sunflowers, and the beans will use the sunflowers as a climbing trellis. Okay, and what else do beans do for us, or for the soil? Yeah, they fix nitrogen. So they're a legume, which is another, and they have a relationship with the bacteria in the soil, and they take nitrogen out of the air and put it into the soil. So the beans will actually put nitrogen in the soil, and then it'll help the sunflowers grow. So there's a guild happening already. So that's a two-plant guild. So they're working together as a team. The other thing you could throw into the mix, because they're both growing up, we've got some space around on the ground. What could we put in there? Yeah, or some sort of scrambling kind of rambling thing. We could put in a pumpkin. Now a lot of pumpkins will kind of take over the space as big as this. This is a pumpkin that we've harvested from here as well. I think it's a butternut pumpkin. So you could put a couple of pumpkins in as well, and they'll scramble over the ground. What do pumpkins need for you to get fruit? No, each plant will have male and female flowers, but you're on the right track. What do they need to make fruit? Pollinator. So what will pollinate your pumpkins? Yeah, bees, chickens. Bees would probably be better at it.
Lavender.
what sort of things? What sort of things might attract bees?
Flowers.
Sunflowers are awesome at attract. Bees love sunflowers. So now we've got this beacon saying, bees, come here, come here, come here. The bees come. Oh, look, there's some pumpkins. They end up pollinating the pumpkins, so you get more fruit from your pumpkins. So you've got this, you're using the horizontal ground plane, you're using the vertical plane, you've got an instant trellis, you've got beauty, you've got color, you've got bees, you've got pollination, all because you planted three things in the one place that work together as a guild instead of maybe just one thing. So you've tripled your production, you've made habitat, you know, there's lots and lots of benefits. And that's how guilds work. And I love, it's a really nice way to guilds. It's that trio. Yeah, so that's a really good question. The question was, is there any pest management going on in that trio? What do you reckon? No, maybe not. What could we add? What else could we add to the guild for pest management?
Maybe a smell.
Yeah, maybe a smell. So what could we add to? Yeah.
Rosemary or
Yeah. Maybe we could add some herbs to the mix. So we've got some that looks like chives. Aromatic herbs can be helpful for pest management. Yeah. So and that's a really good point. So there's a 3-plant guild. There's a 4-plant, and then as you get, the more complex you get, the more different species that you add to the mix, the better. Again, diversity. It always comes back to diversity. You have beans growing up corn, so that's another. You could add corn to the mix as well. Yeah. So the three is hopefully gets the idea across, but make it as complex as you can. When I'm planting a garden, I'll often think include in your garden a herb, so a smelly thing, a leafy green, so something that gives you leafy greens, something that flowers, because flowers will help you with pest management. Root crop, so something that you're using underground to get some produce. A legume, which you've already talked about, to feed the soil. A fruiting, so if you can find something that fruits. So if you think about different categories of plants and try and have one or two from each of those, then you've got diversity. So
you make like batches of those different ones?
You could, yeah. So if you
need to remember what you planted.
Yeah, yeah.
Because now I stay little.
Yeah, if you're planting from seed, you'll need labels. Yeah, it's all planning. So, but the idea is that, yeah, it's that diversity in that mix. So.
So you don't really believe so much, you know, there's companion plants, but there's supposed to be plants that are not.
Yeah.
You feel that?
So the question, it's the idea of companion planting, where, you know, certain things are meant to grow well next to other things and not so well next to other things. I've never done it, so I can't really comment on whether it does or doesn't work. People swear by it and say that it works. I find with this ecosystem model, you know, I haven't seen a downside to it. I don't know, but I would, yeah, I think, yeah. Anyway, do your research. I think, I don't know, I always would lean to the complexity of an ecosystem over not. I don't know. All right, Zoomers. It's 20 something, 6, 7 past, 4, 3, 23 past. It's one of those things with the dials on it. I just haven't used one of those for so long. Okay, it'd be really cool if we can quickly zoom around the Zoom crew to do a bit of a we call it a round robin, where you can, if you'd like to just share one thing that that has stuck with you from today, one thing you remember. It just helps everyone else go, oh yeah, that's right, I remember. So maybe Julian can facilitate.
Yeah. And what we'll do is we'll just go alphabetically by first name, but I'll yell out the next person so you can be ready on the unmute button. So look, we'll start with Alex, followed by Amaya. Oh, Amaya left us. She got scared. Alex, followed by Barry.
No pressure.
Thank you again, guys. I liked learning about how the plants feed energy into the soil. So that was one thing that struck me.
Great, thank you.
Barry, followed by Catherine. Okay, maybe on to Catherine, followed by Holly. Oh, we've got lots of people knitting. Okay, Holly's ready to go. Go for it, Holly, followed by Kim.
I liked the sunflower like symbiosis with pumpkins.
Cool, thank you.
And Catherine's chatted rather than said it out loud. She said she really liked the idea of the guild concept. Kim, followed by Francis.
My thing I found nice. Sorry.
It's okay.
What did you like, Kim? All learn? No, okay.
I liked when the part about the worms things.
The worms. Great. Thanks,
Nice.
Kim.
Thank you.
Francis, followed by Michelle.
I like the learning about the fungi.
Yep, cool, thank you.
Michelle, followed by Sebastian.
Yeah, hi. I just think the integrate, don't segregate was my takeaway. Thank you.
Cool, thanks, Michelle.
Sebastian, followed by Sunyat.
Yeah, really like learning about the fact that plants actually put energy in the soil and not just draw it. So it's good to have that in mind.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Sebastian.
Sunyat, followed by Tarani. Okay, maybe Tarani.
Okay, I enjoyed I wasn't aware the extent to which plants were putting from the sun into the earth, even the little plants. So I think that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
And Sunyat's just, she's written in, like the minimal human disturbance, much like the message in Kiss the Ground.
Yeah, Kiss the Ground is worth checking out. Google it. It's a documentary. It's also a group of people doing amazing things around putting carbon into the soil and solving climate change and regenerative agriculture and all that stuff. So really interesting, really nicely put together. Kiss the Ground. It's really good. And it's a movie. Yeah, Fantastic Fungi. It's a it's a movie, I guess you'd call it, isn't it? Like a yeah, that'll blow your mind as well. So go down that wormhole, literally, about soil. It'll blow your mind, just what we're learning and what we're discovering about how soil actually works. So.
And on that, Kat, we do have a couple of minutes for questions, particularly from the Zoomers at this point.
Yeah, fire away.
So Catherine's asking, how many centimetres is the topsoil that you're referring to?
Oh, well, it depends, yeah. So here we noticed it was probably, what, 10 centimetres? I think if we dug in different parts, it could be deeper, could be shallower. Interestingly, like rainforests, big rainforests, their topsoil might only be 20, 30 centimetres deep, but there's so much action in that 20 or 30 centimetres because there's plenty of moisture and there's plenty of organic matter. Generally under that, the soil is awful, you know, it's rocky and there's nothing to it, which, you know, when they clear rainforests, which is tragic, they might get to grow cows, they might get a couple of years of growth, and then it's just, there's nothing. So it's that process of what we were talking about in the top 20 or 30 centimeters that can sustain incredible plant life and animal life. So it's quite shallow, but over years, your topsoil will get better. So on you know, people are doing this stuff on broad scale agriculture now. It's called regenerative agriculture, and they're finding their topsoil can be, you know, healthy, carbon rich topsoil can be really quite deep after years and after even a few years of doing it. So yeah. yeah, so the depth depends on, you know, how long, how intensively you're really working the soil. So if your pot is only this deep, you can have a really nice topsoil all the way through. And when we plant up, we'll be doing soil in pots and how to plant up containers and how to prepare the soil. We'll teach you how to get really good, you know, replicate a natural ecosystem in your pot.
So thank you to everyone on Zoom. There's a thank you from Catherine for that answer.
Catherine.
Next week we're on to planting, and probably the particular thing that might be of interest is we're going to be looking at cuttings. So definitely sign up for that. Oh, hello. Register on Zoom, and we'll see you next week. And I'll send out a feedback form to you all. Love to hear from you each week. It's very helpful. Thank you. So wave from all of us.
Bye.
See you later. See you next week.
See you guys.
Thanks to both of you coming.
Yeah, thanks.
See you, Sebastian. Thanks.